Hello there, and welcome to day 12 of 25 days raising awareness of mental health. And welcome to today's talk. We're going to be talking about anxiety and different types of anxiety, particularly at the moment, generalized anxiety, and maybe how we can recognize it when it's a problem, and maybe we can sort of help put it into context that we can understand it. So, hands up anyone who's not suffering anxiety at the moment. It's anxious about the future, anxious about what's going to happen, anxious about starting works, anxious about going shopping, anxious about meeting people. I'm particularly anxious at the moment because as an outdoor instructor, I'm not sure what's going to happen when I start to take people out in the outdoors. I'm part of a mountain rescue team as well, so I'm anxious about, turning up for some of those emergency calls, maybe, how that's going to work. I also deliver first aid, so how is that going to work? Anxious about that. So things are anxious. Life is anxious, the whole situation with the coronavirus and bad hair day as well, the whole thing is set to give us a feeling of anxiety, of insecurity, of not what's going on. We're not talking about simple sort of anxious bits and pieces where we feel a bit uneasy about things that are happening around us for a period of time, and that's perfectly natural. What we're talking about is where anxiety starts to become your day-to-day go-to. Yeah. When you wake up in the morning, if you've slept at all, because you've been worried about things happening, the first thing you do is worrying about what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat. Maybe next thing you're worrying about is if you stand up, you might break a leg. Are you going to fall over? So where anxiety becomes your default setting, you're basically anxious about everything. Is the roof going to fall in on you as you sit in bed? So we're talking about that type of anxiety, and where does it come from? Yeah, it can be mild, it can be severe. It's just that feeling of unease about pretty much everything that's going on around you, to you, with you, to your loved ones. And there's sort of loads of different disorders that go with underneath the anxiety umbrella. And I'm not going to, go into too much detail. There's loads of information out there. I did copy the link to the NHS website to the Anxiety UK site, and that's the sort of the basic general outline there of getting information from. There's lots of information on the NHS site about anxiety and generalised anxiety disorder, as it's called. But what we're looking at is if we feel that our feelings are getting out of control, what do we do? Or how do we sort of narrow it down? Are we thinking that maybe it's just that and you're going to go away? So feeling restless or worried, having trouble concentrating or sleeping, dizziness, those are sort of the warning signs where we think, actually, I probably need to go and speak to somebody. And the first port of call would probably be your doctor. Okay. Now, sometimes it can be perfectly normal, particularly if you have gone through a fairly worrying time. Things have been brought to a head, maybe. Some of the things that might occur and bring it to its, what causes general anxiety. So basically, you get over your emotions and your feelings and your behaviour becomes overactive. Yeah, so you're just constantly overthinking things. You can inherit some genes from your family that makes you more likely to be anxious. Yeah, depending on your upbringing as well, that might make it more susceptible to it. If you've been exposed to stressful or traumatic experiences, very much like depression, you're more likely to have anxiety. Yeah, feelings of that. Long-term health conditions, pain, particularly if it's painful. Yeah. Drugs and alcohol abuse also has links to anxiety and anxiety attacks, etc. But some people can get it for absolutely no apparent reason. There'll be no history of any sort of trauma in the past. They'll just start to have feelings that things are sort of getting out of control, and they just can't focus on things, just worried about everything. Now, particularly at the moment, like I said, there's pretty much a lot of anxiety with the coronavirus, with things going on. And what I have seen, is a lot of people, particularly online, getting quite irate, and complaining about lots of stuff, and really sort of shooting from the hip most of the time. And we seem to have lost that point of distancing ourselves from things that are going on around us. We feel compelled almost to sort things out. And maybe this is our generalized anxiety about maybe lack of control about what's going on. We're pretty much still, even in England, where it's sort of easing the lockdown, that we're still under a lot of restrictions, still under a lot of control. Life isn't back to normal, and I think basically the new normal is going to be, there's going to be a lot more things that we don't have control over. There's going to be a lot more situations. There's going to be lots more people that feel out of control. And anxiety is one of those things that, like I said, can come out of nowhere. It can be, pretty much appear just overnight, almost. So what can we do about it? Well, we can be aware, that if we are starting to feel anxious, that it's a normal thing to feel anxious about certain things that are happening. Again, like depression. Depression is just a normal process that we go through. Anxiety, we can be anxious about things. What we don't want to do then is let that anxiety overwhelm us. And some of the ways that we can sort of look after ourselves about that anxiety, particularly if we do start to get a bit of a runaway brain. And what I mean by that is we start to link all these different things, and everything becomes an issue, everything becomes a worry. And there's a few sort of simple techniques you can try, self-help courses, etc. You can go online and do that stuff, but some very simple stuff. We mentioned right at the beginning about being aware of what our thought processes are, being aware of what we say to ourselves, being aware of the voices that we do have. We're having a conversation with ourselves most of the time. Being aware of that, and that takes a little bit of you time, calming things down, very much like we said yesterday about our processes with the books, of creating that space and time to have nothing going on other than you spending some time with yourself. And I know that can be quite scary for some people, because they've probably spent most of their life doing whatever they've been doing, keeping busy, to keep away from the voices in their head. And it's probably because they're not feeling very positive about themselves, and therefore the voices aren't very positive. So if you keep busy, you don't hear the voices. Well, if things are starting to get out of control, particularly with anxiety, or, as we spoke about the other day, a bit of depression, normally that is a process, but if it's starting to get out of control, then the first thing is you can take control of it. You can start to think, well, if this is how I'm feeling, what is it I'm feeling and why? So start thinking, so I'm upset and I'm worried about what the future is because of the coronavirus. I'm upset and worried because I'm not sure if I'm going to have any more work. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to feed myself? What am I going to do? And all of a sudden, things start to spiral and roll and, steamroll. So step back, slow down, and start to think, well, how did this process start? It's because of the coronavirus. Eventually, at some point, the coronavirus will go away, like everything else goes away. We manage to get our way through on most things in life. We will get to a point where life carries on. That's the norm. How are we going to do stuff? I don't know, and neither do you. But there's lots of things that we can do to get ourselves from where we are to where we need to be in the future. And it's about getting options as well. So we're sitting there thinking, okay, these things are really worrying me, but can I control any of them? Well, maybe some of the things you can control. So if you're worried about getting any work, is there anything else you can do instead? Okay, even volunteer work, okay, will start a process where you're then feeling more positive about being out and about. Okay, if you're worried about, feeding yourself, well, is there cheaper ways of feeding yourself? There's food banks out there. I'm not ashamed to say that in the past I've used a food bank. Times have been hard when I've been with somebody in the past and ended up, having to get food from a food bank. There's people out there. There's plenty of stuff out there. There's always a way. Okay, but when we're in this spiral thinking about things, and it's 101 things that are making us feel upset and anxious, then it's hard to think straight. So, again, being aware of what those thoughts are, being aware of what we're saying to ourselves, being aware that we are in this spiral of feeling anxious. And if we're one of those people that is prone to feeling anxious about things, being honest with ourselves and going, okay, well, there's lots of stuff going on out there, and I'm likely to feel anxious about it. Okay, I'll accept that. Okay, but I won't let it control me. Okay, and I'm going to probably have a worry moment. I'm going to give myself some time to worry about it, and then I'm going to switch it off. I'm going to not worry about it, because if I can't control it, what's the point in worrying about it? It's still going to happen. So there's no point in worrying about it. It might happen anyway. So maybe giving ourselves permission to have our moments, maybe giving ourselves permission and going, do you know what? If I'm going to be anxious, I'll be anxious for a bit and then I'll switch it off. And again, if we didn't use that time that we're thinking about things, about being aware of what's going on and the anxiety, and it does start to steamroll, maybe we need to sort of get some help at this point. We're thinking, this is too much, okay, if we can't get it under control. So again, it's a way of gauging whether you need help or not. Sometimes it's best, with any of these mental health things, is to discuss it with somebody that you trust first off. If you haven't got anybody that you can discuss it with, then, you ring NHS, you speak to your doctor, okay? Mental health is one of those things that, again, the reason why I'm doing this is so that we start to talk about it. We're raising awareness. We're making people aware that actually pretty much everybody has an issue at some point in their life around mental health, because we're a thinking creature. We're a thinking and feeling person. So anxiety, again, like depression, is one of those things that we have. Everybody suffers from anxiety at points. Everybody has anxious moments. But what we need to be aware of is when that anxiety starts to well up and become part and parcel of a condition where we can't function very well. So what are we going to do then? So the anxiety part, again, feeds into our feelings and the thoughts that we have. So again, we have an opportunity to take control of what we think about. We have an opportunity to take control of the thought processes and being aware. We have an opportunity to try and think differently. And again, this is about us having that time and space, creating that time and space, and giving ourselves an opportunity to make a different choice about how we feel and how we think about certain stuff. And if we don't have the ability to do that on our own, then we ask for help. And help is out there, okay? And again, I'm going to keep harping on back to this. The reason why I'm doing this is because pretty much everybody is going to have some sort of mental health issue, either simple or complex, either needing intervention or sorting itself out themselves. But we've had this conspiracy of silence for so long that these things have gone unnoticed until it's too late sometimes. These things have gone unnoticed so that people feel despair. These things have gone unnoticed or untalked about or not felt to be able to speak about it because of who they are, where they've come from, etc. Their background, maybe, how they feel about themselves, how they feel about other people, knowing that they might have a mental health issue. And again, we have an opportunity to talk differently about it, think differently about it, raising awareness of stuff so that we can help those people that don't feel confident enough to speak about it, to open up, and opening up an opportunity. So I see lots of people online, saying, if you need a chat, here's my number, don't be frightened to call out. But people are frightened to call you. People are unnecessarily, I know people that fear that they will be ridiculed or picked on, or they will be ostracized, or they will singled out, or they'll be, people take the mickey out of them. We have to change this. We have to change it. It's the future of the human race is going to be pretty much down to us sorting out this mental health epidemic at the moment. We've got to sort it out. And all the problems that we see around the world are normally to do with what we call stinking thinking. Negative thoughts that people are having about other people or about themselves. And it's an opportunity for us to change that process, change that thinking, change the way that we see mental health on a day-to-day basis as being part and parcel of who we are. So, today's challenge then. So again, with anxiety, we've got overthinking. So what I ask people to do is make a connection with somebody that you know in your friends list that is either on their own, or that they have struggles, whatever. And all I ask you to do is make a connection so that you have a phone call, or you have an opportunity to have a FaceTime meeting with them, or a messenger video, etc. Just so that they have a time to make contact with, a talk, a chat. Doesn't have to be about anything other than, how you doing? Thought of you, just wanted to make connections. Is it okay if I phone you in a minute? Is it okay if I have a chat? Some of you can actually go out and about. Yeah, with some restrictions in England now, can actually go and lift that. If that person's okay with that, then go and do your socially distanced meeting. Yeah, if it's within the distance you can travel. Yeah, start making connections with people. Start making the connection so that there's somebody that you have reached out to, that just make that chat, make that friendship, make that connection, so that they would possibly in the future feel comfortable in turning around and saying, oh, I'm so glad you've called. Do you know what? All I've done all day is just think about everything going wrong, and I just don't know what to do. Or I've just felt so alone and so depressed and so down, I just don't know what to do. I've got nowhere to turn, etc. Physically making a connection with somebody, to open that message, open the channel to get hold of somebody, rather than, if you feel that you want to make connection with me, here's my number, reach out, etc. Be proactive. Be the person that makes the connection for somebody that may or may not help them in the future. I mean, people may say, no, I'm fine, I've got too much on, can't talk to you now, I'm busy, whatever. That's okay. Try something else. Just try and make a connection. Try and make that positive connection with somebody, and maybe, suggest that you, every couple of days, let's have a FaceTime chat. Let's have a phone call just to check in, make sure it's okay. To build the bridges, to make sure that people feel confident in being able to connect with you. And it's not the same as Facebook. It's not the same as social media. We have Facebook friends, we have social media connections, but we're not connected to them. They're just people that we see pictures of, and we see what they want us to see. We see those pictures and those statuses because that's what they want us to see. But we don't know the real person, and the real person is the person that we make a connection with. Okay, so particularly with anxiety, Yeah, because everybody pretty much is anxious at the moment about everything. And you might be anxious about making a phone call or making a FaceTime. Well, okay, there's a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Okay, we can either be afraid of things in life and just let that stop us and be fearful, or we can actually overcome some of those limitations by facing the fear. I don't mean lion taming and jumping off tall buildings without a parachute. That's probably quite silly. But, just if something like that makes you feel afraid, give it a go. See whether you can attempt something that you've normally felt anxious about. Okay, getting over it. What's the worst thing that they can do? They can tell you not to phone them again or not be in contact again. So that's my challenge for today. Okay, so anxiety. Trying to minimize how we feel anxious about things is by attempting something that makes us feel a little bit anxious. Try and overcome that anxiety, and it's normally leading up to something that we're not confident about doing that we get anxious. So maybe trying something like this can maybe open up the doorway for somebody to make contact with us who does feel anxious, or also maybe managing some of the anxiety that we have generally about life in a way that we can control. So that's my sort of take on anxiety. There's a lot more information out there for people. Tomorrow's talk, I've not quite decided what I'm going to do, but we'll do an upbeat talk tomorrow. And I'm going to lead up to, we're going to be talking about suicide over the weekend. Okay. So I'm making people well aware that in the future, it's probably going to be Saturday or Sunday, that I'm going to be talking about suicide. So giving people the opportunity to not tune in if they don't want to. I'll publicise it well in advance. Again, it's one of those things that people do not like to talk about, but it happens. And it happens a lot more than we would care to think about. Okay, so we'll put that out there, and we'll be talking about it in the future. So if anybody's got any ideas of what we could talk about tomorrow, upbeat subject, something more positive, maybe something around personal development, maybe something that you feel that could help people with mental health challenges, maybe something that you've done yourself, maybe that would be worthwhile discussing. If you want to send me a personal message, so you don't want to make a public statement, not a problem. Send me that. If not, I'm sure I will have something that I can talk about through the mental health forum and raising awareness of mental health and its conditions on a daily basis. So weather's changed in Wales here, so it's a bit dank and a bit grey now. Lots of indoor stuff. So no barbecue tonight, but enjoy yourselves, look after yourselves, be kind, okay? And then try and make that connection. Okay, see you tomorrow.